strangers who happen to walk by and thinking, who is this spirit of sun that's doing a live video on Pluto stuff and Pluto in Aquarius? So a little bit, this is a Jupiter day, Jupiter hour. So we're having the astrology of this video. The moon is just changing its phases in Virgo, ascendant on 2 degree Capricorn with Saturn in the second house of this chart, horribly aspected but sextile in the sun. Oh well, we'll see what happens. Jupiter is the 29th degree of sextile in Pluto, trine in Lilith, which opposes Pluto. So let's see what happens. Now, I'm gonna if you're wondering who am I, then I am just astrologer, researcher, and this person that does these things. And yes, I do like to get fed, and I do have a Patreon, so I will put it in the comments. Now, I just want to look at what will Pluto be doing in Aquarius. So I'm gonna do it live with you. Um, uh, let's think of a way to begin this because this one is I'm working with astrosig.com. If you can donate and feed Peter, who is building this site, that would be as great as well, and I would definitely consider it a donation because we get all these data for free, very finely arranged and very accessible by a really brilliant person. So thanks, Peter from astrosig.com. That works. First of all, Pluto ingresses. I'm working with 2023. Pluto ingresses enters Aquarius on March 23, 2023, and I get like January because I know we have something on January that it goes backwards. So let's just take a look at the March 23, 2023, which is so Pluto will be, well, the moon will apply to square Pluto on this day. Planet that is, for those of you who don't really know astrology and of looking at this many, numbers and things that you don't know, ask me any question. I don't have, like, as long as you're serious with your intent, I don't consider anything to be a stupid question. The moon is the closest to Earth. So when the moon connects with another planet, we consider the moon bringing the effect of another planet. Harmonious aspect, what you see here in the blue, are less intense. They're like potentials, more like potentials than actual concrete events, are usually manifested by hard aspects. Thus, the lines we see in the red, there are more hard aspects than what we see in the red. But I'm just going to stuff. The fact that the moon is creating or applying, you see it's 26 degrees Taurus, and we see Pluto in the 29th degree of Capricorn here is going to ingress into 0 degrees Aquarius, is applying to an aspect. It's coming closer, okay? It's before the 29th degree or before the 0 degree of Gemini in this case. The fact that we have an applying moon here, for the 0 degree of Taurus, it tells us that this is a stronger aspect. Okay, when the moon is separating from that square, we have a diminishing aspect, is applying a stronger aspect. So for sure, we know that around the 23rd of March, something's gonna happen to do with that Pluto. We can expect the Pluto ingress into Aquarius. Now, why we say something's going to happen? Because the moon is attracting that, and the moon is the fastest moving planet. It only takes 28 days to circle the Earth from eyes. How we see things, and our point of trajectory, if that makes any sense, playing a significant role in what astrology is for us. For example, if we were, let's say, on Pluto, then astrology would look different because the closest, we can predict that the closest planet would be the manifesting planet, like the moon is for the Earth, And then whatever that closest planet to Pluto would make an aspect to, then we would look at that, and if we were on Pluto, do an astrology. Those are all very much thoughts of Pluto in Aquarius. So that's probably going to be a significant event. The square is from Taurus. Taurus is considered a place where the moon is exalted. Okay, the moon is ruling a watery sign, Cancer. It's moving fast, and we know, and Taurus is considered an earth sign. It's also ruled by Venus, and we know that water as elements, they nourish each other. So Taurus is the most comfy of earth signs. It's a fixed earth sign, and it basically rules over the things that we rely on for our comfort. So it's our bank account, what we put on our voice, even nice, pleasant voices, sensual land. And then Pluto is in Grass, and that is a fixed air sign. It's a very intricate sign to talk about. But you know, the air and land are going to be like, Pluto is going to be in an earth sign, and the moon is going to be in an earth sign, attracting that to the land. I don't know what it is, but it's definitely to attract that plutonian accounts to our coming from the realm of air and the force of Pluto in that air. Now, just a quickie bit on Pluto, which is very difficult to summarize, but I believe more facets of Pluto as we look at it from Aquarius. Right now, Pluto is in Capricorn, so you have to take it into account. You know, we saw where the moon was. Um, and I'm actually about to, well, never mind. Pluto is a gravity force. It's a force that keeps something on the land. Okay, our ability, for example, landing on the moon is more difficult for the body that's used to being on the land of the earth. The gravity force of the moon is not as strong or as tight as the gravity force on planet earth. So you can rely on walking on the earth. You know, we have earthquakes, we have all kinds of things that shake up the earth and make it feel more airy. That could happen. But walking on the earth, I think that's way more reliable than walking on the moon, because the steps are lighter, you don't have as much gravity to tie it down, and that does our internal organs as well. So one point that Pluto brings in sign is gravity force on air. What gravity do we have on air? So we can have what gravity centers we have on air. This can also be something to do with the weather. For example, the vortices. I've recently heard about Land University discovering quantum vortices. I have no idea what's quantum. Have the shape that's reminding of the knots of the Vikings. I thought it was just beautiful. What is quantum vortices? One thing we do know about quantum experiments and quantum phenomena is that observation is a part of what affects what we see. Okay, and I'm trying to be the most concrete about it, because of course that can have so many implications in so many fields, including spiritual fields. We hear the quantum all the time. So I was trying to just, you know, redundant as I can about this declaration. That's happening. It's a big ingress. Again, this is the ingress. This is the first ingress of Pluto into Aquarius. Not the first one, because we do have one in January. But you know what? Because I'm intending to work on the. This is probably the ingress that's the more important. And then we will have another one in November 19. So Pluto leaves Aquarius, so 11 2023. What do we like? Okay, this is, let's go back to the chart and I wait for highlights. I can't do highlights. Wait for shorter videos or whatnot, or offer to collaborate with me. But I'm trying to be as inclusive in that explanation so that everybody can have a fair chance to watch advanced videos. And why is astrology actually interesting? Because if you only do the foundationals and you don't touch on that, then you don't get excited as much. And I want you to get excited about astrology. So here's back to the exciting stuff. Forward in the signs, and this is Aquarius. Um, it's moving direct. Now, how come it leaves Aquarius back to Capricorn? It doesn't move backwards. It doesn't. No planet move. Mercury doesn't move backwards. But what do we know about the illusion of time? If you're driving, think about that Einstein relativity thing. If we are driving fast on the highway and there are the lights, okay, just the lights of the road. If you're driving fast enough, like, are moving. It looks like the lights are moving backwards rather than you're moving forward, because you're so flowing in your motion. You're in a certain speed, and the differences between the speeds alters your experience of motion. So you feel like those lights are moving towards you and backwards rather than you're moving forward. Okay? It's not the same as the retrograde, but the concept is that that's not what's happening. And so Pluto is moving direct, but because of the differences between the motion of Pluto and the speed of the motion of which, and the speed of a circle, we're not exactly a circle either, or a sphere either. But like with a sphere, there's some tensions around the bit elliptical and so on and so forth. Um, but because of that, it seems like, but guess what? It's not only that it seems like a planet is going backward, we also feel the energy of that planet moving closer to us. And that's what's creating the retrograde hype that we talk about in astrology. It's not that we're stupid, it's not we don't know that that planet is not moving backwards, but the fact that there is a difference in relations between the speeds at that time that creates not visual illusion of retrograde, but also actual effects that are different on the way the life experience here on Earth. Okay, so it's an actual phenomena, even though it's not Pluto moving backwards. So Pluto is going to be looking like it's moving backwards, and we signed it. And then during its retrograde motion, it's going to go back again to Capricorn. And this is where it basically goes back to Capricorn. And here we see the little arrow motion. Now, the first thing we want to look at every chart is where's the moon? Is the moon applying here? And the moon is applying to this Pluto and is sextiling. So this is a blue. It does mean that we're going to feel that Pluto, but it's going to be more of an option as to what's going to happen rather than something that's in the red. Something's like, there's a concrete event. Okay. So we will have the potential to feel Pluto going retrograde. Now, when Pluto is going back to Aquarius, out this Pluto is separate from a square to Jupiter. And Jupiter is already going to be in Taurus. In June 2023, Jupiter is already going to be in Taurus. And if we talked about Taurus being our life comforts, a substantial material, but it's not only material, right? When you have a sensual pleasure in your body, it's not just material. When you are able to step on your land, it's not just material. If you have money in the bank or real assets that you can rely on, that you know you can sell, that you know you can give away, that you know to secure. Leaving a hard aspect with Jupiter, and that means that whatever Pluto is doing, still in Aquarius, because this is a 5-degree Jupiter, from Aquarius, still in Aquarius, and also in Capricorn, whatever that gravity force of Pluto, that essential thing that you think keeps you together, because the Pluto changes are core changes. It's something that happens to the nuclei of your being, to be metaphorical. Okay, I'm not using redundant language here. And Capricorn has to do with both agriculture, structure, big structures, minerals, crystals, commitments, also rules time, and also rules the ring, something we dedicate ourselves to, or something that is dead, that we let go of, that we go short on, or leave in the physical body. So maybe whatever Jupiter tries to do here in Taurus is in conflict with what Pluto is closing up in Capricorn. What can we expect? Um, we can expect conflicts between authority, like regimes to enforce rules on land, all the while the people, or think, or gurus or whatnot, actually preach to accumulate land. And so the regimes might try to regulate the accumulation of land, of assets, of raising your voice in the world. Also, Venus is also the voice, and to some extent also of sensual pleasures. And that can be something as simple as eating an apple, and now apples are too expensive, or there's a regulation around them, or you wanted to sell the produce of your land and enjoy some day at the spa, but now you have to, make sure that you adhere to all as to when you can sell food. And some of these rules and regulations have merit, and some of these rules and regulations are just means to control you. And Pluto is going to sift and sort through that. So probably things to do with rules and regulations, exposure around the motives of rules and regulations. We've been having that during Pluto and Capricorn, and that conflicting with the objectives of Jupiter and Taurus. And we're also going to see here, funnily enough, Venus square, and Venus is in 5 degrees Leo, and Pluto is, well, Venus is separating from an opposition to Pluto. So those are not applying aspects, they're separating aspects, but they're still in effect. Yeah, so there's going to be a context of Venus opposition in Pluto here in June 11, 2023. There are other videos where I talked about the cycle of Venus and Pluto. And that's another context that we'll be wrapping up. So we know that Venus cycle in Leo started in 2017. It started um, the Me Too pandemic. Okay, the exposure, and the Rahu, the North Node, was in Leo. So a lot of actresses, a lot of performers were talking about the experiences they had to go through in the industry, and why some figures, why some actresses disappear from sites if they dare to speak about a sexual offense that they have endured. And then the discourse was changing around that. Okay. Then we have the Venus opposition Pluto. So, of course, sexual harassment and, abuse of power, of inequity in power, is a very Pluto thing. And this time Pluto was in Capricorn. And now we have another instigation of perhaps female figures in performing arts, um, in being at conflict with certain Plutonian plutocrats, perhaps in governments, perhaps in any sort of organization that has a top to it. Okay, any sort of pyramid organizations. And then, Pluto is reflective back there, so there can be attempts of rules and regulations on performative acts, on acting, on speaking what's in your heart, or another tying up of that cycle attempts to, I don't know, mitigate the effect that Me Too had on so and so. So we can explore a certain sort of female figures that are also royal, because Leo is also royalty. So female figures in royalty, being in conflict of power here. It doesn't necessarily denote death, although it can in some cases. It means that we're letting go of both certain plutocracies, certain people on the Capricorn side, certain figures on the Taurus side, and certain figures on the Leo side. But that not necessarily, like, you really need other indicators for that to happen. So that was the going backwards, which I am covering, and going back to Aquarius. Um, so Pluto going back to Aquarius. This happens on January 21st, 2024. On the scope of 2023, Pluto takes around 300 years to complete a cycle around the zodiac. So we can understand we're talking big time frames. It's going to spend around about 20 years in Aquarius. So that's the scope. I'm going to cover as much of it as I can today. And this is Aquarius, and it's going to conjunct the Sun and trine the Moon. The Moon is going to be in 5 degree Gemini, so it's going to separate from this aspect from the Moon, while separating from a sextile aspect to Neptune here. This ingress, first of all, it comes up with a luminary, and it's connected to the Moon. So it could be a very significant ingress. Okay, why? Because the Sun is closer to the Earth than Pluto. So the Sun is what we consider a personal planet. Okay, like the Moon, the Sun, Venus, Mercury, Mars, and to some degree Jupiter. Those are the personal planets. And when we begin to go from Saturn onwards, we begin to go to the outer planets, and Pluto is one of the outer planets. So having an outer planet meet in a personal planet and meet in a luminary. So the luminaries has special qualities. They address the eyes, they address sight. Those are the planets that we see during the day and during the night, the main planets that we recognize. The rest of them we see, but smaller. And so luminaries have more effect. Pluto coming into conjunct with the luminary, it means that we're going to see that ingress on land. We're going to see that ingress, not necessarily on land, but in planet Earth. Okay. The Moon is going. Gemini is ruling the people, civil society, transportation, the civil society. Okay, not the masses like Aquarius, but civil society. And it's going to be a harmony there. It's in the blue. Um, uh, I'm trying to think, with the Sun ingressing into Aquarius. Well, definitely, if we talk about scientific stuff, then the way we see things, powers, any sort of powers, also in mathematics, okay, and constants, because when we talk about the fixed air sign Aquarius, I've been thinking of constants in mathematics, which is more like, it has some facets of an airy field, depending, of course, probably on what type of mathematics. And then seeing these constants in a new light, seeing more of the power of constants. I believe we're going to transition. Air signs or age of air is more decentralized, where we're going to probably transition from axiomatic mathematics to more Babylonian type mathematics, or where the type of mathematics where you discover you discover a couple of rules there, and another couple of rules there, and instead of trying to express these couple of rules in one set of rules, that is the axiomatic, have to reduce your argument to something, then you will have more relative logic. I'm not necessarily saying relativistic views of reality, not at all. This is not what, this is absolutely the contradiction of what Aquarius is doing. Um, but it's not necessarily promoting more tolerance. But it the type of science and mathematics and views of constants of powers, maybe of numbers. I'm not sure. Like number, like I don't know. I would need to look at it and test astrologically. That we're seeing differently, and we're going to move slowly towards decentralization of what we call axioms. This is a big deal here because Pluto denotes the essence of something. If you think about the essence of Western mathematics, it's axiomatic. Okay, the notion that you have a couple of things that you discover that you hold as tautologies, as declarations that are always true, and everything you know about the world has to reduce itself to be able to be expressed in those axioms. Pluto is going to change the axioms, not just big industrialization, but also scientific revolution. It's a very exciting time where the fundamentals of what we hold as true are going to be transformed. Okay, and the sun, a luminary, it definitely sun is also intelligence, especially in an air sign. Okay, is how we see the air, how we see the waves. I'm not talking about the waves in the sea, but the waves as a phenomenon. Okay, how we see that which is not graspable with our senses, because waves you usually can't see. You can either hear them, you can detect them using technology, and definitely we're going to have the technology that allows us to observe more fast reality than we've previously been able to observe. If you know anything about later Larry Loudon, he talked about conservative science versus innovative science. Basically, innovative is more experimental, but is also more relaxed and more allowing in what it considers scientific, because you have to test something that you still don't know yet, and you have to allow more possible truth value. You have to allow more things to be possibly true, so that you can look into them. If you talk about, for example, chaos theory and the technology that was created following that, nobody in the academia wanted to have their say on the chaos science because it was so amorphic. Um, and nobody wanted to risk their reputations with that. So decentralization is something that's necessary. Okay? And also, unfortunately, some of the separation from science and spiritualism, but there were very fortunate aspects that we needed to separate science from religion to take a look at what we held as true from a different view. I believe Copernicus happened in the 1500s. I addressed it there. It's one of those research live with me thingies, so check that. I don't remember what I said there, so yeah. So this one is going to be big. It doesn't mean that necessarily we're going to get that published immediately. Pluto is also hidden things, but luminary is something that we see. Definitely something sciencey. Like we'll see something different. Now we said also that the sun is ruling Leo, and Leo rules royal figures. So what when an air, okay, is something that you can't keep a lot of secrets in the air. It's very difficult to hide things in the air. We'll find ways to do that, but this might have a revelation or a transformation or of royal figures, certain leaders that are also royal figures, certain people that are viewed as kings, but that can also be, because it is age of air, that could be people who are considered humanitarian. And you know, Aquarius and humanitarian is something that deserves an episode of its own. If you Patrick Watson on Twitter, then you've seen his notion in a tweet about his own parent basically was also an astrologer, and she had an ascendant in Neptune because of Placidus and whatnot. And he said, "Well, but mom, what do you think about technology?" He said, "I hate it. I don't like it." And he said, "Well, isn't your ascendant actually ruled by Saturn, this the traditional ruler?" And she mentioned humanitarians. Like, what humanitarians? Kim Jong Un and so on and so forth. That was a very beautiful talk. Just with just a couple of tweets that you can follow on Patrick's Twitter, and the notion that modern astrologers or Pluto generation astrologers may associate Uranus with Aquarius and humanitarianism, but also traditionally ruled by Saturn. So those type of figures that are considered of that Aquarian age that are considered humanitarian or that do something that affect humanity on a grand scale will have a Plutonian transformation. It can either be their rise into power, the dying away, or being exposed about them, or the people, because Aquarius also rules the people, seeing these or changing who we hold as kings, who we hold as royals, who we hold as representation of divine intelligence. Okay, and that's an opening. That's a very serious opening line to the notion that definitely the matters of the hearts, the kings, the performative acts, everything is changing for the next 20 years or through the next 20 years to come. Okay, also opening a cycle of Pluto in Aquarius. Okay, if we want to talk about previous times Pluto's been in Aquarius, you can go to my other with me episodes where I delve into, and I will continue in the following or months or 20 years, who knows. Anything more about that? Pluto, well, we said there is a leaving of there's a separation from the sextile with Neptune. Pluto and Neptune have been sextile a couple of decades. So I'm 38 years old. I was born with a Pluto Neptune sextile chart. That's probably many of you. Uh, but that ingress with the sun there, again, understand that the Pluto we're getting is the Pluto that still sextiles Neptune. So we can't really talk to having a word of Neptune. Neptune is also going to do a transition into a fire sign. It's now in Pisces. I think that to talk about Neptune in Pisces when Neptune is difficult, but not impossible. Definitely Neptune is at home in Pisces. We know that Pisces rules both certain facets of the consciousness that merge with other things. If you think about the psychedelic experience where you ingest medicine or even natural substances like mushrooms, and then you have an experience that resembles sometimes what people say is a near death experience. So both of these planets being outer planets can denote death, but they're in essence of a medical experience that transforms your reality. Those kind of things. And Pluto ingressing into an air sign can have, we might look at it as another type of intelligence or of reality, we alternative consciousness states, and so on and so forth. So that's a beginning of a whole new rabbit hole for psychedelic experience, for non-dual experience to be translated and to be addressed from a point of view. Okay, and we're going to be interested in the waveforms, in the frequencies of these, and in the velocities, in the winds of these experiences. Vortices, perhaps. I don't know what vortices is. I need to check vortices thingy. Um, Next ingress, please. Okay, Now this is a very big thingy because it talks about ingresses and I want to do transits. So I'm gonna have to go year by year here. So let's go year by year. We're gonna take it with Pluto and we're gonna do. Why am I doing that? No, I'm going backward and I'm going to do. Yeah, there's another ingress to talk about. So that would be any aspect. That would be any aspect. And there we have, this is, yeah, would be aspect and I want, okay, from the, let's from 2024. Let's do it from 2024 June. Um, mm, 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 mm. uh, Transits, Pluto, and so we will take the ingresses. We'll take a look at the ingresses one more time. Pluto, re-entering November 19. Yes, of course. Re-entering, re-entering Aquarius. That's November 19, 2024. Yes, of course. I must look at it. Of course. I'm half channeling as I'm doing this, and I was like, my finger was going to it. I was like, what are you doing? Why are you leaving this? Like, what's happening? Yeah, why don't you talk? It's true. I need to talk about it. And then they were going to the current planets, like probably trying to delineate what the fuck am I doing? Sorry, pardon my language. Um, Mars is separating from the opposition to Pluto as Pluto ingresses to Aquarius. Wow. Oh, Pluto is applying, is separating from a trine to Uranus. So Pluto will be still in effect of the trine to Uranus. We have a very interesting shape here. You can see this sort of a rectangle, but it's not closed. And we have a sort of a kite shape, but it's not closed. And we have a very, it's like a geometric shape. We have an interesting geometry that is not closed. I can't ignore that. I need to look into shapes myself. Um, so I can't like delineate the kite shape or delineate those shapes that are not closed. But I can't ignore the geometry of this. And it's a very interesting geometry for an ingress. It's something that looks like something that's almost coming to fruition, that's almost closing, but is it and isn't that? Is it a rectangle or isn't that? Is it a kite shape or isn't that? It looks like a couple, a bundle of geometric forms that are beginning to form, but do they? Fact. Uh, uh, that ingress, I don't know how to interpret. Definitely, we'll take a different look at geometry. And this is interesting because Mars is separating from Pluto, opposition, and Mars is in Leo. But Mars in Leo is ruled by the sun, and Mars is a hot and dry planet. But the one that doesn't hold is fire. It has a linear trajectory. It's the most young thing of all. Um, and Mars is linear, and Pluto there is like, no, we're not closing that geometry. We're not having this line based geometry anymore. We're not going to look at geometry in this. We're not going to say, well, you put one line like this, another line that mirrors its, another line connecting them. You got a triangle, and that means something. Enough of that redundancy. Um, this is what I see when I look at this chart. It's like, if you paint a picture, you think about, Sleeping a trine to Uranus. When you paint, you try to paint, even the human body. you know that you don't paint it in lines if you want a realistic view of it. You paint the shades, you paint the imperfections around the lines that are not close enough, that is almost proportioned but not proportioned, and that is what you consider beauty. If a person is too proportionate, then they look unreal. Has an almost perfect proportion, then they're beautiful. Okay, um, so that attains to beauty, but it also attains to realism. We want something to be close to perfect, but there are some imperfections and some things undone in it to consider beautiful. So we are heading for a very realistically marvelous time or ways of viewing reality. We might attain certain truths at this point, or people born with this might attain certain truths that are magnificent to observe because they're almost divinely perfect, they're almost redundantly perfect, but they still maintain their very realistic sense of perspective in terms of Uranus in Taurus. The moon is in Cancer at Pluto, but it does aspect Neptune, which Pluto still sextiles. Okay? Um, and Neptune in Pisces. So the non-dual experience of the scientific endeavor, including the psychological and the mystic and the mythic experience, it's an opening view that's very profound. Um, by just being exposed to this chart, you know, there's a talk about the Renaissance. I don't remember what predict the Renaissance. I think people even spoke about Saturn in Pisces and the Renaissance. But yeah, what about the Revolution? But what they observed is that in reality, your body is not perfectly figured and perfectly shaped. If you think about, I think about the hands of, yeah, well, how would I not think about the hands with Jupiter opposing Mercury and Jupiter in Gemini, Mercury in the other, opposite sign? Big hands in the Leonardo da Vinci paintings, and the hands, they were almost unrealistic, but the unrealistic proportion of the hands in the pictures of the Madonnas in Leonardo da Vinci were something that was a marker of Da Vinci, and they were realistically unrealistic. So the unimaginary or the imaginary becomes so real that the art is just so magnificent. You become and you walk into a virtual reality when you go and observe, a wall paint that was made during the Renaissance. But it's the understanding created by the illusion of perspective, the refinement of that, and the leaving out of the deformities in that which is I allowing the in the art is the Renaissance. What we're ingress, this is the person who will be born with that in his chart will probably have the potential to be very significant, or the people who will be born on that day at that time will be people carrying this signature of that sort of Renaissance into their blood into their blood types. Well, I'm thinking, I know Japanese and Chinese pay attention to blood and blood types. I think Chinese health practitioner, they would probably, I think they might be able to tell your blood. I'm not sure. I don't know enough about TCM to determine that. So if you do know, then let me know in the comments below. But the blood types are very important. They play a very significant role in both, I think, Japanese and Chinese medicine and culture. They play a significant role in mating and so on, to like dating by your blood type and all kind of things like that. Like that's something that we'll see there. I need to learn more about that. I don't know because I'm being very. I come from a Western ancestry, and perhaps obscured by eugenic views and the dark parts of eugenics in the history of the 20th century. So I'm coming with a significant historical baggage to the world, blood types, or the holistic meaning of blood types. But I need to look more into that and kind of see what happens there, because I don't know why did I get blood types here, but blood, maybe bloodline, blood types. Taking a look at the blood, observing the blood, those who would, of course, Mars is, iron and the components of the blood, but Mars in the sign ruling the heart, the blood in the ruling the heart, and also playing a significant role in ancestry, because the sun is also the father, and then the way we see reality, because blood type that flows in our heart affecting also sight. Okay, the sun, how we see the world, and how we see science. Um, so into play here. A blood type's view of reality. If we can do that without going all, eugenics about that, and we can appreciate the different worldviews of different bloodlines, then perhaps we can attain at a more perfect view of reality. Again, it takes me to the Babylonian. I need to look at the Babylonian historical and astrological context of the transits during the Babylonian Empire. And the notion even of going even backwards to Babel Tower. Okay, this channel has began as channeling science, and with me doing a channeling experience, which first imagery I got was put in a kunzite, and you can go back to that video if you're curious. Put in a kunzite on my third eye, and receiving for the first time in my life an actual channeling about the tower. That the Tower of Babel is mentioned was how I realized that I'm absolutely communicating here with some, because that was not in my lingo. And I got that, like the different cultures, the scientific endeavor. Now it comes into another full circle, or the completely incomplete circle. The scientific endeavors is a sort of a Tower of Babel, where we have different cultures, different traditions, different languages, different epistemic standards for empiricism, religions, philosophies, and whatnot, all playing as variations on the canon of that which is true. And I'm looking at this chart. This come back to mind. Okay, I was doing channeling signs, and the first thing was Da Vinci, because Da Vinci was he was time as a scientist, because he said, well, it's not about those people see that about what was back then the academia, and the download body works. I've opened the dead, looked in it, and I drew that. But he was also channeling. He was also receiving stuff. He was not just observing the reality. He was also receiving downloads, and that intermix of observation and observation is that thing that we're probably gonna get again in these very exciting times. So, as you see, I get emotional about it. I get emotional talking about scientific discoveries. I get emotional talking about how we see in the world. So that is, yeah, that's just an interesting play. Ingress, with this very magnificent ingress. On a more, mundane level, we do have a Mars separating from an opposition to Pluto. We know that Mars opposite Pluto are the big forces at play, and Mars is the point of an arrow. The line, the trajectory, the linear movement And Pluto there is kind of delving, although it rules traditionally considered ruling traditionally. It will be traditionally when it but 40 years from now, ruling Scorpio. Who knows what other outer planets will we discover? I mean, we probably will, and we'll probably have to adjust our astrology. And then, I just gave an adaptation for the adjustment of astrology. Take a look at any planet. What's the closest planet that's moving? Planet in signification of the ways that it's going to play out in attracting the other planets. Like that basic, you're going to have on any planet. What your planet is, what that planet is, can significantly transform your experience of reality. But that thing that you take from looking at the moon, what does it attract? Looking at the closest planet to my planet, what does it do? What does it attract? And that's going to give us the basics of time we can and then discover more time experiences as we go. And we would probably go. We'll probably not just be living on Earth. Now, another facet of this thing, not complete, is an understanding that there is something that is of geometric shape that does not form. So there are some things that are not going to come into fruition. Okay? Some things happened in the Renaissance. The feministic revolution was definitely not a part of them. Yes, there were significant women at play, but some things like there are some things that we would expect with like a kite shape or a trine or a mystic rectangle, bringing into being that they're not going to be exactly like happening. Okay, it's going to bring and there are some things that are just not going to be perfected. Again, very realistic. This is the time where your greatest dreams can come true, and you're gonna be realistic about the way they're coming true. If I think about filmmaking, when I was in high school, I was just doing film, like a little bit of film. I was directing a movie that I wrote, and I understood very well that the image that I have in my mind and the settings that I'm going to have available are going to be significantly different, and I was making sure that I don't let what I have in my mind interfere with seeing the beauty of what I have in the field, and I don't have what I have in the field. Ruining the essence of what I wanted to come and say. Okay, you might see an image in your mind, and to allow yourself to discover the beauties, significant points of that movie. I was breaking a convention, and to see the beauties of that which is real, which is basically a child looking into the camera, and we were just in high school, so we're starting the. I had to explain why I broke the convention and how I really fought for that. I remember that image to this day, and it ended up in the movie, and all the things that I had to allow for that to be, and it just happened. It was not just in my hands, even though I was the director and the screenwriter, and that's good. And those type of breaking of the convention only come up when you say, well, wouldn't it be amazing if I put the camera in front of the person? They're going to look right into the camera. You see, you don't do this anymore. They have to look near the camera. You have to be more aesthetic. But you say, no, fuck it. Isn't that beautiful? Picture, and you fight for that, and you look at the screen, and then something strikes you, and what strikes you is reality. It strikes you in its beauty. It strikes you in its magnificence. That when I look at this chart, I look and I think about the stamp of what is to be. There are certain things that we're going to discover about reality that will strike us in their beauty, even though they're not with the convention of what we deem aesthetical. And aesthetical is moral and so on and so forth. Amazing chart. I just want to take a picture of this chart because it's so awesome. But yeah, we can't ignore Mars being in a hard aspect to Pluto. Okay, that's something that happened. And Pluto, the power of who is considered or deemed intelligent, who is considered scientific, and Mars is the actor that can also play out as power that is opposing it can be like a Copernicus kind of type of script where the leaders, um, the kings, the rulers have a certain view of reality that they're very hardly related to, bloodline related to, and then Pluto comes and offers a different point of view, and they're like off with it, off with his head, and it's like the people say actually off with your head. So that is a bit, or off with your heart, and that is a bit a lot difficult on a mundane level. We can't ignore the difficulty and the challenges that the aspects present on a mundane level. So of course we're talking big things here because we're talking outer planet movement, and it's absolutely not Pluto in Aquarius for all 12 charts. You probably got it by now. So yeah, and so those are just the ingresses. March 9, 2043, and because I'm curious, Pluto is going to enter Pisces for the first time. We're gonna not look at all of that, and it is going to be doing that when it's sextile Capricorn. Okay, not our aspects that I see here. The moon will cross like a couple of days later. The moon will cross over that sextile of Pluto. But look at the shape. This is so Pisces because look at the shape of this square. Or is it? It's like a square you look at from another cross-dimensional square. Thank you for acting on your own behalf with your intelligence, regardless of my consent, huh? Anyway, so that just flipped the page without me doing anything. Like I can't ignore this like just look at this shape. Just look at this sort of a rectangular shape that's forming here. But I want to watch. Look at what's happening. Look at what's happening. Yeah, how many? It did that on its own. Back to top. I want to look at this shape. I want to take a screenshot of this shape, please. Oh my god. But that's going to be the Pluto ingress into Pisces. Here, Pluto is still in the 29 Aquarius. And yeah, that's not in the scope of our discussion, but isn't that an interesting... Thank you. Let's go back. Let's see if I go back to Aquarius. Let's see what's happening there. No, Pluto enters Pisces. I go back. Back. Thank you. Isn't it lovely? Let's look at what's Pluto going back to 2024. Still in 2024. You've seen what happened when I looked at Pluto in Pisces? Can we just take a moment to appreciate that and see what happens from now on? So this is Pluto creating any aspect as of 20. And I think the conjunction with the Sun is not in the scope of our talk, but it kind of is, because it's the scope of Pluto moving to Aquarius and then backwards. Pluto is direct, conjuncting the Sun, trining the Moon, all in the 29th degree. We have a bit of inconsistency. I'm going to take a look at the current planets soon, but wait. So 29th degree is called the anaretic degree. It's a very predictive degree. It's where you are looking, you're sitting at the top of the mountain and you have seen your journey, and you can see, like, you can have tools to predict where it's happened. People with this, let's say, ascendant or luminary in anaretic degree can often have premonitions, that is visions or dreams that predict the future. So back to this chart, please. So it's a very interesting thing. I am seeing a bit of revolt here from technology. So that was our first chart. Let's look at Pluto conjuncting Mercury. And this is already happening 0 degree Aquarius. So the first thing it's going to do right in 2024 is conjunct Mercury. I'm not downloading just yet. Thank you. Pluto conjuncting Mercury. That conjunction is going to be trined. Not really trined by Uranus. It's not really a trine. It's not a trine. It's not a trine. So, but it is going to, is it conjuncting Mars? It's sort of interesting, but I can't say much more of that. Like, obviously, a message is on air. A new message is on air. Mars, I don't know, new message around war or sport events. I don't know. Then yeah, imagine watching this video like a couple of years from now and like, oh damn, there's too many things that were said here that were too correct. But that's what these videos are doing. It's like that's what they're gonna do. You're gonna just take me anywhere you want, and I'm gonna have to contend with that from now on. Let's just let it play while I talk about that. So, but Mercury is also small technology. It's also, we can see like hacking into technology, something like that. Mercury is also children, youth. So, yeah, story about that going on, with, sciencey technology and the way children are being overpowered by technology, or the other way around, the power of children to do hacking into systems and do stunts that we've never before perceived. Um, so that's happening. We are back in 2023 now. You want me to look at? We've looked at those. This is a conjunction in 2023 that we have in 10th February in the 28 degree aspects. And we have an interesting democracy. This episode is getting funnier by the day. So I'm forced to look at current planets to see what is happening. Let's turn to my time zone. Beer, Sheva, Israel. Perhaps there are some things that I'm still not ready to see. That's maybe the case. I don't know. Moon, Mars in Gemini. Okay, fine. Moon trining Uranus. Moon trining Venus and Mercury. And about Mercury stuff, Mercury Pluto stuff. Yeah. Back. House division. House division in astrology. It definitely does change the way. How do we divide things? How do we? Yeah, that's the main part of our entire. Lord, thank you. Adjustable. Yeah, this is also an interesting type of, what we're seeing here. I'm basically looking at what my phone is doing. No houses. Okay, let's try it. Sweet astro clocks. And I'm basically having this interesting interaction with my technology right now. Yeah, the sun. We had the Mars that's ended. So it started on a Jupiter and ended, and then we had a complete Mars that has ended, and we talked about Mars quite some. The sun is here. Wonder why was I, gravitating to talk about Mercury, but probably the moon's aspect. What we're having is an interesting conversations. Basically, my device is doing things. and I can look at it as, well, that's just my device is flipping, or I can look at it as some sort of intelligence working here. Let's see what it might be suggested to look at. We have filters, dark modes, inverted. Let's see what's inverted mode. And oh, I've never seen reality in this way before, right? But that kind of reminds me like the old computers. And now I think that, you know, we can't ignore that. Like, I have a phone here, and this phone is also observing this technology. It's like it's a part of the observation, and they have their own mind about it, and it's kind of lovely to see what they're doing. So yeah, and the moon is in 10 degrees Virgo, so I have a partner in this conversation. Astro clocks. Can we go to yeah, and you know, we're in the midst of this opposition going back to our time, with the sun. Yes, no houses. Let's do Sagittarius. Sagittarius is the house. So it's like, look, here's a different point of view. Here's a different point of view. Here's another way you could look at this chart with this one. And why would we do that? So there's a lot of facets of the even in astrology. I was talking previously about, you know, oh, if we are on Mars, then we're going to look at what's the closest, you know, what would be Mars moon. So then it kind of shows me here, look at these house divisions, look point of view, what it brings up, and observation, the many facets of observation that we have. Um, and because I was going way too linearly about things, I was going way, you know, I was logically moving forwards, and that might not be. And, yeah, so we're seeing here, you know, the sun in 20 degrees, 23 degrees, Sagittarius sextile in Saturn here, Saturn time, and that perhaps is a good time to end this segment of the video. So this would probably be the introduction, and move forward as we proceed. I think I gave also quite some information and need to be observed and need to be digested. So that would probably be a good time to end this recording. And I'll see you in my next episode. Oh, of course, if you want to look at more of these. First of all, I have a Patreon. I'm going to put it in the comments. And that allows you to donate money to me and to donate money to what I'm so that I am a better human being. You contribute in humanity by feeding artists and scientists and thinkers and curious children. And that's a possibility. If you're wondering if I've been doing this, then I might. You've seen how chaotic I am, so I need to have artistic place, like artistic freedom to express myself. If you want your chart to be read in this way, then I can't hold you back. What you need to take into account is the flexibility. You know, astrology is a science that also deals with Uranus, and Uranus is unpredictable. So you're gonna need to allow that Uranian unpredictability. And Uranus is currently on my sun in the third house, according to certain house division and certain ascendants. My ascendant in Pisces, so that affects things. So I can do readings. You just need to understand what you're like, what you're up to, and if you're up to that, then you can contact me. Probably I'm still available on Instagram. Up to this point, I haven't seen people who try to imitate me. So you contact me. So that makes it extra step that you're not giving your data away to, you know, to strangers. And you need to be comfortable with the bank transference to my bank account, with giving you my bank account. Means that I'm going to give you the reading uh, before or during that bank transference, so that we can see each other, that we both see that we talk with an actual human being. And you know, I don't just give you my bank account details, which is also a point. because PayPal, like I haven't managed to open PayPal due to technical difficulties. So yeah, I don't have WhatsApp currently because I just have my phone. My computer is transitioning, so, so I have to abide by that. Why are we looking at Jupiter? Well, because why the heck not? So yes, so this is the way that I'm available for readings, and I'm probably going to attend. Like you can sign up for that or write me a message, and whenever I'm able to, I will for both able to hop on a reading hands on. Then that's what's going to happen. Another way to support me is again Patreon and transferring me money there, which like will find its way to me if there's enough money gathered. So we'll put my Patreon in the comments section for you to tend to. There's a $5 tier that you can do there. I think there is also possibility for one-time donation. I don't like to tie people up with commitment. Like let me know in the comments if you went to my Patreon and you didn't find the one-time donation. So I will try to see how to put that on the side so that you can decide how much money you want to give and when. I think that's more fair, given the Uranian nature of this endeavor. And so, and given the Uranian nature of our current economy, okay, so you give what you're able to give at the point in time. I don't ask you to commit to fund me. I might have special videos. I'll tell you what I think about that. I think that I'm more of the encyclopedistic type of person. I want the knowledge to be available and for you to donate me when you can, how much you can, whenever you can and desire to. And I want that enough because I don't want people to be out of knowledge. And yes, sometimes people are not able to make that transfer of the $5 to buy me a cup of I don't drink coffee. You'll buy me, I don't know, some fertilizers or cinnamon to fertilize my plants or something. And I don't want you to be priced out of access to what I'm doing here. So I prefer it if you just donate money whenever you can. And I hope that would be enough. And I hope I wouldn't have to have like extra steps to make like an exclusive VIP thingy where you buy your way into that VIP community. I don't like that. That's not Pluto and Aquarius to me. I don't want you to buy your way into a special community. I want you to be a part of it through intellectual and curiosity pursuits that are accessible to you, and for that to be authentic, and for the money thing to be happening voluntarily. And I want to believe to make a good living out of doing that and being that part of society. That's what I'm aiming at. The Patreon is really only, I know I said I'm going to do exclusivity, like my first intention is to not do any decentralized somehow. And if you can make a contribution, then that would be helpful. So that's up for now, and it's true. Like I would probably doing a 10-hour video if I try to do it any other way. So this is the part one of just the transition of Pluto into Aquarius. I think that many stuff came up. Write me in the comments below, your perspective. If you made a video about Pluto and Aquarius that relates, that makes a connection with this video, then hey, you can post it in the comments below, and we can have shared information together. You can really post a link to it or call people to your channel. It's okay as long as you pay attention to my content and you show like how you relate to this conversation. So we're being civil here, and as long as you allow people to do that on your channel. Okay, that's another condition that I put, because I like that's not just for people to say, oh, come look at my channel and that. Then in your video, in your channel, call people to do the same on your channel, so we can have a decentralized web of information that we share, even though this is YouTube. And this could be on any other website, like it doesn't have to be YouTube. And I'm enough activism for today. Isn't that a beautiful painting of a bird?
Oh, wow. Sabian symbols calendar. That's the Sabian symbol for the day. Isn't that beautiful? I don't know what it says, but it's just lovely. Looking at the bird. The bluebird is alone here. But yeah, I'll say goodbye, and we can begin the chat from there. Thank you for watching. I'm really appreciative of that. You can drop like a smiley or something to let me know that you were here, so that I don't get all only like usually only comments that I get is like the unless every once in a while I get another one, but usually the comments that I get is like those advertising for sex cameras, and like we don't have much interaction. There's nothing I can help them. There's nothing they can help me. So the actual viewers of my videos would drop a smiley, and we just know that we're not alone in this. So yeah, have a great day, Jupiter day. Take advantage of it, like in a good way. Now, video. Bye bye.